Chapter 1 Curiosity killed the cat. At this point in time it is 1995 before Miniature Tiger was born. This story opens up to a new hero that was revealed in Miniature Tiger Original 2, and the Planet Eater people lived on a deserted island next to the USA, and lots of people were afraid of one certain cave that was on it because there were beliefs of evil spirits in it that would murder people that entered it. One time one boy entered it and did not come out for 5 days, and on the 6th day his arms were cut off, his legs had no flesh on it, you could see the bone on it, and he unfortunately died, but his body was found in the cave. That person that found it also got killed, so people began to think evil spirits were ripping them apart, so no one went to the cave for years fearing that the spirits might come out to kill them and their children, so a team of people went to the cave to see if it really was spirits killing people. One of the people was named Rachel, and she was in a relationship with a guy named Jack, and the time and was invited because she loved documenting events that were happening, and they wanted this certain event to be documented to try teach people about it, but it would be all put up when the expedition was over due to no Wi-Fi being there. So Rachel turned on her camera and started speaking as it began to record. This is day 1 of our expedition to try prove the Cave of Despair is not cursed with evil spirits, and if there is one, our ghost tracker will spot one, and it will let out a siren letting us know so we can escape if there is one, but until then we'll stay in here for 60 days at max, 1 hour at minimum. That's all for now. See you on the flip side. She had said skip forward 11 days. She decided to turn her camera back on and record it again to give the viewer more information that they needed to know. It is day 12 and we are doing well. None of us has been killed or attacked, and we haven't even gotten a warning, which is good news, but whatever any killed those people, we are going to try figure out what it is, but we will stay safe from any danger. If we find it, we'll run and warn others. She had said skip forward another 10 days. Something came to them which was not in mind for anyone. They spotted a weird particle in the air and looked in a microscope and found out it was a new virus that was flying around, and she turned her camera on again to record, but this time she didn't talk. She let the viewers see, and they put it on one of their team members who volunteered to see what it would do, and it sank into his arm and drilled a hole through his skin and made him scream in agony and horror, and blood poured out like water being squished out a water bottle, and the virus went and floated towards his brain. The team covered up the wound and put him on a bed to rest. Within a couple hours he had a massive headache that made him groan in pain. He said, "It feels like I've had a crowbar smacked at my head over and over. I'm not sure if I'll make it." The team was worried about him because they just realized that the virus was acting a bit like a symbiote. Skip forward 5 days. She turned on her camera. Rachel said, "I'm pretty sure it's day 26 and we have found a new virus. We don't know what we'll call it, but it has caused one of team members' agony. We feel we should send him to hospital." In the background you could hear a demon speak out of him, yelling, "Rip, tear, kill, eat, destroy everyone until nothing is but a plague." Then he got up and grabbed a knife and cut of his hand. Then his bones started coming out, shaping into a knife, and said to Rachel in a sinister voice, "Come here, dear, let me end your life." The demon spoke, and she screamed out for help as he launched at her and stabbed his bone into the wall as she dodged, screaming, "Help! Help! My God! Help, please don't kill me." As he cornered her up, getting ready to end her life, one of the team members saw and got in the way of the demon controlling the human from killing Rachel and got stabbed through the throat, and the other team members came and saw their friend being killed, but the possessed person, and then the possessed person took the bone out and fell over dead with a symbiote virus still alive on him. Rachel thought it was best to bury their bodies, but the team ended up getting infected, but Rachel wasn't affected much. But the virus, they decided to name this virus the symbiote virus, for it had taken possessed of their team member and killed as well. So the next day they pack up and left for the city to get help that they needed because they got infected. Skip to 1998. Everyone in the city was infected, and everyone was slowly dying from the infection, with everyone killing by possession of the symbiote virus, and Rachel could see it all happening. Jack was now working in a lab to create a cure to the symbiote virus, but he had created a bar that people could eat to weaken the virus, calling it the anti-symbiote bar, and Rachel decided to bring her camera and started speaking. "It's been 3 years since the virus broke out. Everyone is infected. I know I'm on the edge of death now. Look at all these poor children have to suffer from a virus. If anyone is out there to help us, send help now before it's too late for everyone on the planet." Then all of a sudden she fell on her knees screaming and then started spewing out blood. It flooded the ground around her. Then she spewed up her guts insides, kidneys, lungs, and her heart. Then she put her hands on the ground, crouching over, as she spewed the rest of her life gone, and she also threw up her veins, her brain, her muscle, and flesh, leaving her body left with bone and skin. A lady walked up to her after the spewing and asked, "Are you all right?" There was no response. Comes back. Instead, her arms gave way, and she collapsed into the blood pile of her insides that she had threw up out of her body due to the high pressure to the brain of the symbiote virus, making it go into self-destruct mode, and the people left the body right where it lays in the middle of the street with the flies and bugs eating away at her dead body that no one removed off the street. When Jack found this out, he fell into depression and swore to destroy the symbiote virus at all costs, even if it meant the death of him. Rachel's life isn't this story we're talking about. We're talking about the zombies got started up, but that is later on when technology upped its game and Jack started doing 500 push-ups every morning to try and ease the pain of the loss of his girlfriend. Chapter 2: The Calling of Hope. The year it is now is 1999. It is morning at 7:30 a.m. Jack was doing push-ups as a way to ease his depression, and then looked at the time and figured he was late for work. Jack was a pretty buff person. Everyone was afraid he would kill them, but he never did. So Jack put on his jacket and ran to work out on the street. But every day as he runs to work, he visits his girlfriend's dead body. But since the bugs went crazy at the body, she no longer had skin, and it was now bone, and the blood gut pile was now rotted, looking black and completely dried up, and headed to work as he saw many people sitting outside their houses staring at Jack, waiting for him to cure them at any time. But he was waiting until he knew it was ready, not until he thought, because he knew that he could boost the virus to something more deadly. As he walked to work on this day, he called up his friend Michael. "Hey Michael, have you finished making that ad that we're making to help people survive attacks from possessed people?" Jack said, "Yeah, almost just got to finish up to make a good ad. It takes time, but it should be up in 10 minutes. Michael replied back. Jack looked at the time and knew he had to run before the storm caught up with him, because every day on the island there was a storm that happened where a bunch of symbiote virus particles would form into tiny spikes, and it would use the wind to stab into different hosts. But the storm was 20 minutes away from him." Jack replied back, "I got to go. The storm is catching up with me." "How is it back at your bunker?" Michael replies, yelling, "Well, the storm caught up to me. You need to hurry." So Jack grabbed out a metal ball out his pocket and threw it at the ground, and it turned to what looked like a void with dark blue surrounding the outside of it, and he ran through and was now at the front door, and the portal disappeared and the metal came back, and he picked it up and walked into the front door, and then an I spoke. "Airlock tight, activate now then." Jack put on his mask so he could breathe. Then the I spoke again. "Put mask on, for the oxygen is about to be killed so symbiote particles can be killed." And then a huge wave of wind smacked his face, for the oxygen was being put into a vent where the symbiote particles were being held captive so they could test it to figure out how to kill the symbiote virus. Most people over time thought it was useless and the end of mankind was coming. Then the I spoke. "Airlock tight, doors 2 opening. Welcome, Jack." Then Jack walked in, and one of the new volunteers said him, "Thank God you're here. The top scientist is about to create a new cure. He needs your help immediately." Jack replied with, "He better not, because he could boost the virus. Send me to his room now." But the other scientist refused. "Send me to his room now." Jack deepened his tone to scare him, so he activated the elevator to send him to the 130th floor where the top scientist was testing the symbiote virus. As the elevator, he looked at his watch at the time, and he could see the storm raging outside. It was the worst he had ever seen. And then once he got up to the floor, he saw green electric sparks jumping across the room. "Hey Dominic, I thought you said we were going to figure it out together." Jack yelled over to the top scientist. Dominic yelled back, "A true scientist makes sure he is never late. That way he can use up his time to study long." And well, Jack had heard this before, which it never affected him. He eventually got bored of what he heard. "Let's see how far you got with this studying," Jack replied, ignoring what the scientist would usually get him to say a rhyme that he liked. "Very good, come here," Dominic replied. "I figured that the ingredients in the anti-symbiote bar weakens the symbiote virus, so I was think." Then Jack finished the sentence, butting in, "If we use the ingredients of it and a symbiote particle, we could make a cure." "Yes, but we'll have to strengthen the ingredients to boost the effect. That way it can disintegrate the symbiote virus," the scientist replied after Jack finished speaking. Then, after a quiet moment, Jack came out with, "Will it work? Because if we think it works, it might boost the virus to be more powerful." Dominic replied, "It must, because we are losing people. No one from the US force will respond for help. They keep leaving us on call. It's ridiculous. We are beginning to think we can only help Ourselves, Jack replied back with after 5 minutes of silence. All right, let's get to work. So we can finish this, Dominic replied back with, I need you to grab the sickest child with the symbiote virus right after the symbiote storm has passed, so we can use it to see if our cure has worked or not. Jack didn't like taking random kids off the street using them as a lab rat, but he knew that if he didn't, more and more people would die, and the island would be an abandoned graveyard, and he wasn't about to let that happen ever since he had already lost someone he deeply loved. After a few hours the storm passed, he went to the ground level to go out to the street to find the most sick child with the virus with using the symbiote finder, which is a device that could detect the symbiote virus, and if it let out a siren it meant the person was possessed and no longer here, and if it beeped loud that meant they had the symbiote virus really bad and needed medical attention. And so Jack came down to the end of Hell Street and found a child who needed medical attention right away, so he picked her up and put her on his shoulder, and people saw him carrying her and saw her eyes turn completely black slowly. Then when he got back to his workplace, he handed the girl over to Harold. Harold was a fairly tall person, and quiet skinny people would tease him by nicknaming him Harold the Giraffe. Harold never liked it, but he was one of the smartest people in the workplace, so Harold took the girl into his office, and in the office he had a collection of knives on the walls, and one made out of diamond on his desk which concerned people, because he brought infected people in there which were at the point that they would get possessed any second. But he put a girl on a chair in front of his desk and then sat in his, and then replied with, Hey, what's your name? She did not reply, and his eyes were fully black, there was no color, and then he replied with, How long have you had this sickness? Then the girl replied, but a demon spoke over her voice, and both said this at the same time, Do you like playing the game where I murder you and you murder me? Then the girl picked up the diamond knife and jumped on Harold and climbed around to his back, where she stabbed the knife into the back of his neck, slicing a chunk out, then ate it. Then she threw the knife through the door. Jack saw blood on it and heard screaming in the room, and then replied to Dominic, I think it's too late for her and him. Then the girl took a bite at his neck, then he chucked her out his window behind him as the blood flew across the room, and the window shattered as she came out of it. Then she fell to the ground from 123 meters high, and her body shattered with all her bones crashing into the ground, breaking as her flesh inside spattered across the ground. As people saw this, they became afraid they were killing people. Then Jack entered in Harold's office and saw Harold on the floor with one hand on his neck and the other on the ground as blood rushed down dripping on the ground. Then Harold whispered to Jack, Shoot me. Jack replied back, Why, we can help you. Harold then spoke as loud as he could, but came out as a whisper, Because I'm going to die anyway. Jack looked down at Harold, wishing to never let anyone die, but unfortunately, he couldn't keep his promise he made when his girlfriend died. But this situation was uncontrollable, and then Jack replied to Harold, I'll let you have your peace, so I shall join you in paradise, but I swear I will stop this virus. Then Jack exited the room back to continue on the cure, and then Harold slowly got back up and walked over to the window, and then looked down and jumped out the window, hoping for the pain to end quickly and painless. A crowd of people saw this and walked back, hoping this wasn't another possessed person being thrown out, and saw his body crash at the ground the same way the girls did. And after a few hours, Jack went to go back in the office to collect Harold's dead, lifeless body, but when he walked in, it was empty, no body, just a big blood patch on the floor from the attack. And then he walked out and told Dominic that he was not there, and so Dominic asked for the symbiote virus particles to be sent to him, so he could use to make the cure, and he got handed the symbiote virus. Then put it with the ingredients for the cure, and the symbiote virus got electrocuted with green sparks, and was destroyed. Jack saw this, and saw that it just might work. So Dominic and Jack exited the room, and then a mechanical red hand went near the cure and tipped some black liquid into it, which mixed with the cure, and as Jack and Dominic went down the elevator, Dominic came out with, I know a person that was in the team with your girlfriend. He is the last survivor of the virus and desperately needs help with the cure we've made. We can help him. He lives only 5 minutes from here. Do you reckon you could pick him up? He needs help. Jack had no idea there was any more survivors from the team, and the spoke after a few moments. Yes, he might be the sickest person there is, so let's help him. Then everyone can get cured from this deadly virus. Around 10 minutes later, Jack came back with the man. His name was Matthew, and Dominic had restraining straps ready to put on him in case it was too late, and they put him in the straps, and Dominic said to Matthew, We have these straps just in case you get possessed. You could die at any time now, which is why we're giving you the highest dose of the anti-symbiote cure. Matthew replied back, It's okay. If I die, I've seen a lot I just want it to end, and so they readied the cure for injection to cure him.